You are listening to a conversation with the Cancer Letter. I'm Matthew Ong, Associate Editor of the Cancer Letter. Joining us is Dr. Nataliia Verovkina, a medical oncologist and research fellow at the National Cancer Institute in Kyiv. The local time is 5 p.m. on March 17, 2022, 3 weeks into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Thank you so much for speaking with me again, Dr. Verovkina. How are you doing?
Oh, hi, Matt. I'm fine. Thank you. At least I'm doing my job. I'm returning home. I see my husband, and I really know that my son is in safety. So its situation is, I feel that I can control this situation better than 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right. That was 3 weeks ago when we spoke. How is your son, and what about the rest of your extended family?
My son now with his grandpa and grandma in Munich. They stayed here for a while, and we'll see what happens later. Now he attending online school lessons. These lessons provided by his college here from Ukraine. So he constantly attending his online lessons and walking and staying with grandpa and grandma. So I'm quite I'm quite happy to hear that he continuing learning, and he's quite happy, but he missing me and daddy.
Yeah, but I'm just so glad to hear that he's safe and that at least you have that peace of mind, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I'm amazed and really awestruck, honestly. You drove your son to safety in Western Ukraine, and then you drove back to Kyiv. That's what you did, right?
Yes, yes. It's maybe quite strange, but as you know, due to military states, the men are not allowed to leave Ukrainian borders. And I feel much better when I return to my work. Feeling to be useful for other people helps to cope in with this constant stress. Yes, we realize the stress and the danger of constant air raids, and we realize that we are living under the constant threat. But personally, maybe mentally, it's easier to cope with all these terrible situations when you are helping people, when you're doing what can you do the best. So I think now I feel better. I feel that I can control my life. Maybe I can help for more vulnerable people, such as our oncology patient, because many of our patients left Kyiv, but many patients stays here because they have relatives that they cannot leave. For example, some disabled people who cannot move, older people or something. There are many reasons why people stays at their home. Simply to leave their home is really the tragedy for many people. And these people have to continue their vital treatment of oncology. So they doubled hit by oncology diagnosis and by this war. So we try to help them. What we can do. Currently, we can help them to provide chemotherapy, and we are trying to help and do our best every day. So now we have daily clinical routine. We're seeing 40, 50, sometimes 60 patients, me and my colleagues, because many of my colleagues, doctors, nurses, coming every day to provide oncology services that possible in this condition in Kyiv. And currently we're providing chemotherapy, almost all chemotherapy that we can do. So,
got it. Yeah. What is the state of the hospital of your hospital, the NCI? Is anything damaged?
Unfortunately, no. Our hospital is not damaged and hopefully won't be damaged. So it works. Our manager doing their best. So we have light, heating. We supplied with essential medication. From time to time, we have interruption for some medication, but then we're receiving it. So situation is different from day to day, but we have almost all we need to provide chemotherapy. Almost all. So many volunteers, many pharma, and we also had medication in our stock. So now we can provide patient with essential chemotherapy.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. All of us abroad were watching the situation in Kyiv on TV. We're watching the situation in Mariupol, which is horrendous. But can you tell us what it is like in Kyiv right now in general?
In general, for the first sign, Kyiv is relatively safe. Yes, you can see long queues to the pharmacy, or for example, for some supermarkets. Not all are working, but you have access for products. So we have water, we have heating, electricity in our home, in exception the homes that were heated by air raids or something like that. But the majority of buildings in Kyiv are in good condition. So we see many people. Of course, here is much emptier than in the normal situation, but you can work. But we allowed to leave our homes only from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., for example. From time to time, for example, like yesterday, we were not allowed to leave our homes. So we have to stay in home or in a shelter in case of air raids. And it's really, really hard to cope with this because there are many air raids in day, at night. So you live constantly under this stress, but maybe we get used to them, unfortunately.
Yeah. Do you have a shelter that you go to during air raids, or does your home have a compartment that is underground that is safe?
My home has parking, and we can go here and stay here. Or sometimes we decided to stay only in the corridor because we have 2 walls. So because it's too hot, I'm living on 18th floor, so it's too hot to go up and down. So you have choice to stay for whole night in the shelter or stay at home and just go to the corridor. For the first 5 days, we slept in parking, and then we decided not to do this because it's really exhausting. That's why we decided to go to the corridor. So I think some people live in a subway in the shelter for weeks because they feel much safer here, for example. It's dependent on each individual situation.
Okay, I see. And you mentioned that you're seeing, what, 50, 60 patients or more a day, right? What is the state of...
Not personally me, but all my colleagues, because I'm not only one medical oncologist who works. So we have almost all my colleagues from chemotherapy department come every day and see, for example, each of us daily see from 10 to 15 patients. So in some it's 50 to 40, 60 patients a day, depends on a day. And our hematologist also consulting the oncohematology patients also every day. So patients with solid tumors and oncohematology patient, in exception with bone marrow transplantation, just daily chemotherapy, we're providing these services daily on a daily routine.
Got it. What is the state of your patients? I mean, there's a war going on. Are you also treating non-cancer patients?
Some patient, it depends on stage, because some patient treating for a long time, so they know what they want, they are instructed, they used to live with the disease, they know the prognosis. So it's easy, and also it's depend, because many patients from Kyiv suburbs, for example, today my patient come, she was evacuated from Hostomel, so she have to cope with the stress after this terrible situation for 2 weeks, and then she comes for her treatment. So he was scared, but now she coping with this well. So she decided after 2 weeks of the rest to continue her treatment, and it's very good for me. Other patients are quite calm, so they coming and planning to come to us in 3 weeks. So it depends vary from person, from the health situation, I mean diagnosis, I mean prognosis of each individual patient. So really patients are very grateful for us, many of them. So now maybe we really started to understand each other better, to helping each other. It's not only doctors, but every people in Ukraine, which I see. I can tell from my personal experience, I can tell what I see. So from my side, I see many people are really grateful, are really try to help each other, and also patient, because they realize this situation, and they realize situation. Sometimes really prognosis is not very good. It's really hard to talk with patient, especially palliative patient, because I have this experience last week when really our treatment stopped to helping, and this patient should receive only symptomatic and palliative care. It's really hard, and I'm afraid, because what I have to do, it's a quite stressful situation, because she didn't know to whom call in the emergency. So it's to take very long time to explain where to call, what will happen. So especially when we all live in this uncertainty. So it's really double stress. If our treatment doesn't help, and in this situation, sometimes it's very hard, really.
Got it. And it sounds like you have patients coming into Kyiv from other parts of Ukraine, right? No?
Some patients will come from Kharkov, which was terribly bombed. Some people coming from Kyiv suburbs, not some Kyiv, because Kyiv is a huge megapolis, and many people lives in a Kyiv suburbs and used to work or come to the Kyiv. So on the individual transport, for example, they come. It depends on situations.
Right.
We don't know what will happen tomorrow or in a few hours. So we're just looking and listening on the news and doing what we have to do. So some rules we have to follow them strictly now.
Right. Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of efforts to evacuate people out of Kyiv, but I'm amazed to hear that there are so many cancer patients who are still remaining there. Are they choosing to stay, or maybe they don't have the option to leave?
So some patients choosing to stay. Some patients don't have option of evacuation. Some patients have disabled relatives, for example, and they cannot left them here, left mom, for example, or dad, so they stayed with their relatives and come to us for treatment. Kyiv is very big, so we have million people live here normal, so we see many people every day.
Are the medical supply lines for Kyiv still open?
We, as I mentioned, as I said before, we have medication, many volunteers helping us. We see some interruption with some drugs, but then we see that drugs, for example, situation differs from day to day. We cannot make any prognosis, but now we supplied with essential medication and also chemotherapy drugs and drugs for supportive care.
Got it. Yeah, this may sound like a random question, but it's one from my colleagues. You might have seen that we ran your NCI's Victory Mosaic mural, Mosaic, as the cover art of our first Ukraine-focused issue as a symbol of the Ukrainian will to overcome. Is the mosaic still there? Is it okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. I forgot to ask. I mean, you made the drive out west and you drove back. Could you describe what that drive for you was like?
Mm, I can reach my job by my personal car, for example, and now I have possibility to stay in the hospital. Sometimes it's much safer to sleep here, return to my job. So it's dependent situation. Sometimes I stand here, sometimes I leave in home.
Right. And also when you drove your son through so many hours and so much distance, what was that drive like? Was it safe? Was it hazardous?
Yes, it was relatively safe because they left Ukraine by Hungarian border, and then I haven't leave Ukraine, and then I returned to Kyiv by train. And if you wouldn't mind, I have to answer on an emergency call, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Could you please stop recording? Yeah.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so many US and European cancer organizations have created this new network, a special network to support Ukrainian cancer patients. What advice do you have for them, and what else can they do right now to help you and your patients?
It's hard to say in one sentence because there are many categories of patients who really require help. Many organizations helping our children, children who encountered with oncology, childhood oncology. So they have been taken care about CIOP and many organizations. Many our patients who immigrated, fled outside Ukraine, I mean Poland, Romania, for example. And these countries try to help them as much as they can, but of course they have the oncology patients. So maybe some network more close with our hospital to easy communicate, to provide some medical documentation, because many patients left country without any documentation. I guess, and I believe this is problem for my colleagues outside Ukraine, for example, to build some network, maybe a Zoom conference, something like this, to contact directly hospitals, and maybe some consultation with oncologists who left in Ukraine. This is for patients who left Ukraine. For patients who stayed in Ukraine, currently we have drugs, but what will happen later on, we don't know. So maybe we will really will require some humanitarian helps, I mean chemotherapy or targeted therapy. So we will see how situation will develop. So there is three huge part: patient who left Ukraine, patient who lived in Ukraine, and medication supplies currently is not so acute as it was seems, but what will happen, we'll see. So I think the communication and direct communication will be very helpful, and building some networks on a regular, constant basis in consultation, maybe building some closer relationship, something like this. I think it will be good with American and European colleagues. So, and also I would like to thank you for all organization, for all my colleagues of outside Ukraine, for huge help and support that we're really feeling, that really fills our patients and we. So thank you very much.
Got it. And what is the morale like in Kyiv right now? What are you seeing in terms of, are people feeling more hopeful about how the whole situation is progressing?
We are quite optimistic and really believe that we will stand and we will win.
That's great to hear. Did
Yes.
we miss anything? Do you have any other comments that you think are important to get across to our audience?
No, thanks. I don't feel that we missed something.
Okay, well, thank you so much for speaking with us and taking the time to do this again.
Okay, thank you very much. See you.